6:30. Welcome, everyone, to the June 18th, 2024 Camden Select Board meeting. We're going to start tonight with, or before I go any further, we're broadcast live on Spectrum Cable TV channel 1303. We're broadcast or we're web streamed on the town YouTube channel, and we are also on Zoom. And if you'd like to participate remotely via Zoom, please raise your hand, and our town manager, Audra, will bring you into our meeting. So first thing tonight is our organizational meeting. And the first item on tonight's agenda is the election of a select board chairperson.
I nominate Tom Hedstrom.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Do you want a slate or do you want to go? I mean, I nominate Chris Nolan as vice chair.
So Ken, that's the second thing on tonight's agenda. So we'll cover that. So we have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor? Okay, 4-0. Thank you. It's an honor. Second item on tonight's agenda is the election of the select board vice chairperson.
May I nominate Chris Nolan for vice chair?
I will second that nomination. Further discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
Third item on tonight's agenda is the reappointment of the following positions for the ensuing year. Item 3, a town attorney pursuant to Article 4 of the town charter.
Do you need a motion?
We do. A motion to reappoint the town attorney.
Okay, I will make a motion to reappoint the town attorney.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Ken?
Yeah, in general, for all of these, I don't have any reason to vote for or against any of these people, but it's my first meeting. I don't have any experience from this seat with these important positions. So my choice is to rubber stamp it, which I feel uncomfortable doing. I could recuse myself and abstain, or we could put it off until 2 or 3 meetings from now. And I don't know what is the best route to follow, but I do know this came up a year ago when Chris was newbie on the board, and it hasn't changed since then. It seems a little awkward that the very first meeting we have to make these important decisions, or maybe this is built to be a rubber stamp. Anyway, that's I would abstain from the initial votes here until we get down to the confirmation of the town manager's appointments. I think those are more straightforward.
Ken, as far as I know, it's your right to abstain if that's what you'd like to do. Any further discussion?
I would just say on that note, all of these people are known to us, so I have no hesitation. These aren't new people in new positions. So despite this being our first meeting, I have no hesitation about confirming all of the department heads that we're looking at this evening.
To follow up on the discussion from a year ago, is there a personnel form that is made out for these people? Is there any?
This is different than the personnel process, which we talked about in select board orientation. This is by charter a reappointment process, so it's not the same as their employment.
Ken, could you move your microphone just a little closer? It'll be easier. I will say, Ken, that all of us at our first select board meeting had some angst about this. I know Stephanie and I did 2 years ago, and Chris did last year as well. I think other people have expressed the same. And this is a little bit of a formality for certain, but it is the reappointment that are stipulated either by state statute or charter, as far as I know. So that's why we do it.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further discussion?
No, I'm just trying to get,
You're just trying to get her laptop online.
yeah, I'm not a,
And we can pause if it's
no,
necessary.
it's fine. I
Okay.
know, no, I'm with you.
All those in favor of reappointing the town attorney? 3-0, motion carries. Thank you. Reappointment of the town manager pursuant to Article 2, Section 5 of the town charter.
So moved. Have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? 3-0. 5C, police chief pursuant to Article 2 of the town charter.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? 3-0. Item 5D, reappointment of the fire chief pursuant to Article 2 of the town charter.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Further discussion? All those in favor? 3-0. Article 3E, reappointment of the general assistance administrator pursuant to Article 2 of the town charter.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? 3-0, motion carries. Article 3F, reappointment of the road commissioner pursuant to Title 23 MRS Section 2701.
So moved.
Who is it?
Isn't that Mr. St. Laurent?
Okay.
I believe so, yes.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? 3-0. Reappointment of the harbor master pursuant to the Harbor and Waterways Ordinance, Article 3.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? 3-0, thank you. Article 3H, chief executive and administrative official of the wastewater department pursuant to Article 5, Section 7 of the town charter.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? 3-0. Article 3I, superintendent of the wastewater department pursuant to Article 5, Section 7 of the town charter, I imagine.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? 3-0. And now we move on to item number 4 on tonight's agenda, which is the confirmation of the town manager's appointments. Item 4A is the confirmation of the confirmation of the treasurer.
So moved then.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. Item 4B, confirmation of the tax collector.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. Item 4C, confirmation of the town clerk.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 4D, confirmation of the department heads pursuant to Article 3 of the town charter.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. Welcome back, everybody. Okay.
To Ken's earlier point, at some point, we've really got to take a look at that process. And I agree we should do what the state statute says we should on that. And there are certain positions where it is required. But otherwise, it is a bit odd, you know.
Sometimes I think the governmental processes are odd. It's a combination of historic precedent and sometimes just laws that we abide by. We have to go through the formalities of it, but I agree. It could be streamlined a little bit. Maybe make it a consent agenda. Any objections to moving straight into the regular board business meeting? Okay, moving forward, I will just go through, skip through the introduction, go straight to the call to order. And item number 1 on tonight's agenda is public comment on non-agenda items. Is there anybody here to speak on anything not on the agenda tonight? Okay, item 2 is the approval of board minutes for June 4th, 2024. And unfortunately, we do not have a quorum on that. So I think we're going to have to push that off till the next meeting, Audra? Okay.
Yep.
And we will need Allison for that. Item 3 is select board reports. And Susan and Ken, this is usually a time when you've seen us at the meetings. It's mostly a time for, if you're a liaison to a particular committee, but also a great opportunity for you to, just kind of get some public information out there about something that might be going on in town that you're a part of, that you think might be good information for the public. So we'll start with Chris tonight, and then Susan and Ken will bring in if you have anything.
Sure. The River Advisory Committee meeting was held last week. And the significant item there that we discussed was to change the chair of the committee. So it's no longer a select board member who is the chair of the committee. It gives them a bit more freedom and to do what the select board asked without undue influence from the select board or acting as a privy to the select board, but it's give the committee members the ability to have their own selected chairperson, and that what seemed to be well received by the committee members, and so that's the way that I will be recommending we go forward, even when we look at the liaisons. The other thing that was of significant importance was designs are finally being presented, at least to that committee, involving multiple scenarios of not removing the dam, reducing the dam and adding a fish ladder, being a different scenario, and total removal and redirection of the flow to enable more natural fish passage, though they recognize with each of the diagrams there are some known unknowns, and where one may say, well, it's natural fish passage with the placement of where the river may have been 200 years ago. There is recognition that the bedrock situation is otherwise unknown, and there may, although they say natural, there may be some work that needs to be done in that particular piece. So it was all in the intent to be able to have the committee to have something tactile that will be presented to the public. They've got the committee has a timeline established with the intent to have a recommendation to the select board in time for the warrant articles. And they realize it's a really tight time group, given that they are looking for community feedback on those diagrams that are there. And they recognize that they will need time for a presentation, feedback, rework, reconsideration, and presentation to the select board in time for the warrant articles to be done. And I saw the timelines for that, and that's, the initial draft of those in the hearings are sometime in early August in the single digits. And then, we'll see if that's a bridge too far, but the committee seemed energized by the timeline and by the elements that were presented.
Did they select a chair?
No, they did not, because at that point it was a matter of saying, hey, we realize that you don't have one right now because the former chair retired, but left it to them to be able to think about it. I suspect during their next meeting, that will say, yep, the select board, if the select board agrees that, yeah, that's the way we're going to go, because
Well, they need
this-
to vote to amend their bylaws. So they have their own bylaws that they passed that specified how they determine their chair. So they'll, if they want to do this, they'll amend their bylaws saying that they can pick a chair from their membership, and then they'll do that.
But it gives, it gives them, what I was going to say is it gives them time to think about it and how they're going to go ahead and do that. But based on the reactions during the meeting and the pieces received after the meeting, they see the benefit of being a truly bottom-up, community-involved group, much like what led to the success in Farmington by being more driven by the community as compared to driven by the select board. So I expect that they will, but it will be up to them. But we've let them know that they've got the authority, and if we've got the support of the select board, because they operate under the authority of the select board, that they've got the ability to do that. And I think they liked having that.
Thank you, Chris. Audra, just along that line of discussion, does the MERCAC board, do they need anything from the select board to amend their bylaws or make any of those changes themselves?
No.
Okay, great. Ken, do you have anything tonight?
No, I think that's a great idea, that an advisory committee, by its very nature, should be independent of the board and should not be chaired by a member of the select board.
Susan?
I'm good.
Okay. Allison just asked me to let everybody know that she's at her son's graduation, and she will be here as soon as she possibly can. I did not attend, but I watched it on Zoom. The planning board had a meeting about the floats for Lyman Mars, and you can see that video on YouTube. Audra, town manager's report.
Yes, so we received 6 proposals from consulting teams for the Harbor Resiliency Plan. So a group that included the Planning Development Director, the Town Planner, Town Engineer, Public Works Director, and myself ranked and scored the proposals. And we came up with 2 that we asked to interview, and we interviewed them today. And so we'll be bringing a recommendation to the next select board meeting for a consulting team to work with. And this will allow us to begin this project in July. I had a meeting this week with Christina Breen and Adam Lockman from Senator King's office, and we talked about the upcoming congressionally delegated spending round. And I told them about the $12.5 million bond that voters recently passed here for collection system improvements and other roadway improvements, and explained that we're looking to leverage these funds. So I think that this is going to be a great opportunity because the next upcoming round of CDS is going to be happening. A lot of the work that we do this summer will prepare us to apply for that. And it's a good opportunity to really stretch that bond and get a lot more done with that money that we have. We finally closed on Unit C214 in the Knox Mill condos. So for anybody who isn't familiar with this situation, we foreclosed on a tax lien on the 3 commercial units in Knox Mill East. And thanks to the unbelievable tenacity of Nancy Hughes, who was just determined to sell these units. It was really a labor of love for her. Some of them sold for under $100,000. So it's not like she was motivated by like this big commission. It was really that she was just determined to get them sold because she's been involved in selling real estate in the Knox Mill for a long time now. And she knows what a drag having those units vacant has been on that whole building and both the residential property owners, but also the town. So I just really want to say thank you to Nancy. She was the only, we reached out to a number of different real estate brokers, and she was the only one who was willing to take it on, and she really kind of pushed it all forward. So thank you so much, Nancy. We received correspondence just this afternoon from the Board of Pesticide Control, confirming that their tests revealed the presence of the tibutharon at Lake Beach. However, they said that they will take no action because it's related to the application at 3 Metcalf Avenue, and they've already taken enforcement action. So they do not feel they have grounds to take any further enforcement action. And those are my updates.
Can you get me in touch with the person from the Board of Pesticide Control?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. And it might be that the AG who oversees that office might be the person that you'd like to speak to.
Yes, thank you. Allison, did you want to add any select board reports? Welcome.
Thank you.
You just missed the select board report.
I just went to a lovely middle school graduation, and that's all I can think about right now. I'm just like fighting back tears. It just hit me all of a sudden. And so go
All right,
on with
thank
that
you,
one,
Allison. I'll
definitely.
let you have that. So item 5 on tonight's agenda is the scheduling of select board workshops. Audra, what do we have to schedule?
Yes, so there's two that I think are really important. There might be other ones that you all have been thinking about, but the two that I would really like to schedule as soon as we can are the select board goal setting or prioritization workshop, and also a workshop about the paid parking program. So the consultant that we've been working with over the past 4 years on this project, he said that really coming back in July would be the best time for him to come and talk about this. It would give an opportunity to sort of like walk around and kind of see and talk about some of the things that were referenced in the study. So he's got flexibility, recommends sometime in July. So those are really the two that would be nice to get on our calendars.
So I'm with my son in Europe for some of July. Later July works best for me. That, especially that last week, like the 23rd through the 29th. Does anybody have anything on their calendars for those days? For Ken and Susan, at this point, it is, if it's appropriate to pull out your phone if you want to, or however you do your calendar.
I have fixed commitments on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so Monday and Wednesday are the best days for me to.
Did you say that
more.
it's not appropriate to pull out our phones
It
at
is
other times?
appropriate. This is the
Like,
time.
Just the way you said it made it sound like I may have missed you saying before, are we not allowed to
I
have
have
our
never
phones?
said it publicly, but I honestly believe there are times when it's not appropriate to pull out your phone.
Okay, I noticed there was a little edge to that comment, like, okay. I don't think that's in the bylaws, but pull out my phone and look at my calendar. I would like to not have it on a Thursday, potentially, but I could also probably work around a Thursday if needed, but
Will this be after 5?
What are you thinking,
Definitely open.
time-wise?
We have a select board meeting on Tuesday, the 25th, Wednesday, the 26th. We could, if somebody, Susan, I heard you say not Tuesday or Thursday, so
Wednesdays are good.
Wednesday's
Mondays and
good.
Wednesdays are best for me.
I know it's a lot to go back-to-back days, select board and then workshop the next day.
what's that, the number?
Wednesday, the 26th. And somebody else throw out another day.
I
if-
could do,
Make this
after
all
5,
waste.
I'm free any night.
Okay.
During the day, not so much.
Ken, do you know about Wednesday, the
Yeah,
26th?
I'm flexible.
Yeah, and Tuesday, Thursday after 5 too, it's good. I just have
Okay.
responsibility for my granddaughter up until like 3 o'clock.
I just need to check on whether that's a micro solid waste conflict. I can't remember if it's the,
Sure, take a minute. Because another option, if Susan says Thursdays is good, I could also do Thursday, the 27th after 5.
that,
So that would be for the goal setting,
This would be goal setting, Bill.
Yep.
Goal setting, yeah.
Yep.
and then we've got, and then you said there was a consultant about the parking who's going to come.
Yeah, and that could happen in July.
I thought this was July.
so we're on June. Yeah, I did too.
I thought we were
Oh,
talking
I'm sorry, I
about-
was looking at the
I
wrong
didn't know which one we
calendar.
were talking about.
It's still good the last week of July.
All right.
I
What
was
month
just
are we
looking at
talking
the,
about?
so July, I'm sorry, the dates would, the last week would be like 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, or the week
To go
following.
out that far. When do you
Again, which
leave?
month?
When
Like
are you
July.
going away?
definitely, okay.
Well, Bill suggested July
For goal setting.
for goal setting.
Nice to get in the groove of things
Yeah.
just a little.
So I wouldn't be available those middle 2 weeks of July. Like basically the 7th through the 20th.
Let's.
The 23rd is a select board meeting.
What's
Our meetings
the-
in July are the 2nd and the 23rd. So again, if we pushed it out that far, would be either July 24, 25, that's a Wednesday and Thursday.
What is the, like, on the 2nd? I know it's regular select board meeting, but how does that look for everybody?
Like earlier in the day or during the,
Yeah, either earlier in the day or,
I can do July 2nd earlier.
Tuesday?
Yeah.
After 3, I could,
like,
could come
maybe
after
like 4
yeah,
to,
yeah, that'd be fine.
What day of the week is that again?
July 2nd is a Tuesday, it's a
Okay.
select board meeting, so we'd be
Okay,
a
yeah, yeah.
long, lot of
Yeah.
meetings.
Goal
that day.
setting.
I mean, yeah, I don't have a conflict. Does
So
sound like a long day.
Do you
but
want to do July 2nd at what time is good for everybody? Of course, we have our regular meeting starts at 6:30.
How long do you expect? I mean, an hour? Is an hour enough?
Oh,
or
yeah.
I think probably
4 or 5 hours?
probably a couple. And,
Yeah.
you know, and maybe we can commit to having a light agenda for July 2nd.
It's
Maybe
Definitely.
like take a walk around town and talk about goals or something, or I don't know,
Yeah,
get out of this room
do it in a different room other than here.
or just out and, I don't know, I'm getting, sometimes
So
nice to be outside.
Do we,
'Cause,
Can we do 4
Ken-
PM?
Ken brought something up that I thought would be really valuable for everyone, which is a tour of some of the departments. So we could, if everybody would like to be a little flexible, maybe we could kind of intermingle goal setting and going around to departments and then have it a meeting where there's like very minimal business.
the one thing are we going to take a pause to eat between goal setting and regular
I
meeting?
can organize food for,
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
So would
Or
you
we
want to
just stay
go
the whole time then?
4 o'clock, July
yeah, let's
2nd?
just start at 4
4
and then
o'clock.
we'll,
Okay.
I'll talk with you about agenda and business stuff and we'll try to minimize that so it can primarily be goal setting and tour of departments.
Okay.
That's cool.
And then paid parking, Audra, do you have any preferences on dates for that?
No, I think if you want to do later in July when things are freeing up a bit, I think that would be great.
Okay.
What frees up later?
Yeah, exactly.
What world is
Tom's
that?
schedule.
My schedule, but everybody else shout out if you want something different.
There was a time when the select board, I was reading old articles and they took the summer off.
Oh,
I was like, no,
Yeah.
I don't think we can do that. But,
Is that a motion? I'll second that.
Sorry, I just got the timeline to November town meeting in my email
I saw that. It was
yesterday,
aggressive.
So the end of July looks like, again, 22, the Monday is the 22nd, Friday is the 26th, and of course, then we have the following week, the 29th, 30, 31st, and August 1st and 2nd. Any preferences on paid parking for those 2 weeks? The 23rd is our regular select board meeting.
And after 5, I'm okay.
I'm processing kind of slowly.
I-
I'm going to try to accommodate what you guys come up with.
Just to give a day off in between meetings, we could go on July 25th at 5 PM or 6.
That's Wednesday,
It's a Thursday.
Thursday, the 25th.
I have a Cook Watershed Association
Okay.
meeting on, they starts at 4 usually, but they change it a lot. So
You
just
wanna-
let's just go for it. And
July 25th at 5 PM? Okay.
oh. Looks like I'm speaking to the Camden senior citizens. I forgot about that, but that'll be fun too. 5 PM. Wow, this is adding up. This is the parking one. Paid parking.
And that's officially a workshop then on the 20? Okay. thanks.
25th.
We should really do it like during lunchtime, and we all try to find a parking spot, and then we all come, we talk about our experience. It's like a team building exercise.
Love it.
Just kidding.
Any other workshops that anybody on the board wants to propose at this time? Probably enough for the summer at this point.
Probably. And I think like, you know, as we go along, maybe all of you kind of think about, you know, something that you'd just like to know more about. And we don't necessarily have to address it as a workshop. We could just do it, you know, during a meeting as like a informational presentation or, you know, something just to kind of build knowledge and.
The goal setting meeting, you know, come with your suggestions to that. That's a time. And we did, in this past year, we kept going back to that document. I kept it in my little carrying case. And multiple times I pulled it out during the year and reviewed what all the other members had asked for. And we tried to fit all of those in over the course of the year, as many as we could anyway. Moving on to item 6 on tonight's agenda, which is the consent agenda. 6A, renewal lodging and victualler license for 40 Paper, Camden Deli, Camden Mainstay Inn, High Tide Inn, Mixed Greens, and Windward House. Does anybody have any comments or objections to the consent agenda? Seeing none, the consent agenda is hereby adopted. Item 7A on tonight's agenda is a discussion item. It is the Elm Street School zoning ordinance amendment. Jeremy, would you give us an introduction to this? I know you've been working on this.
Sure. Thank you for bringing it back up. So I think most of you know the school district applied for a zone change, and that's a right of any property owner in town to do. They applied for a zoning amendment to the Montessori school property that they own, and that would be to allow residential uses on the first floor in the B1 district. I would add that there's a provision currently in the code that allows a building in the B1 and in the Chestnut Street Historic District, which this is, to have a 1 and 2 family building and have residential on the street floor. But since they want to do more than 2 units, that's prohibited on the first floor. I'm having a multifamily, having any residential on the first floor. So what they did, they had initially proposed this goes back over a year ago now, and it didn't move forward, and then they brought it back, and they fine-tuned it that it only applied to properties that were owned by the school administrative district. It went to a hearing with the planning board. The planning board unanimously supported it. And then it came to the select board. The select board at the time wanted more community input and engagement, I think is how you guys phrased it. And you guys asked the Historic Resources Committee to get involved and take a look at it. There was a joint workshop with the select board and the Historic Resources Committee on site, and then it came back here. And it's kind of, I don't want to say limbo, because that's kind of I don't think a positive word, but it's just nothing's moved forward since that time. As far as the Historic Resources Committee's here, and I know Chris is here, the town does not have a historic preservation ordinance. So the Historic Resources Committee would not do a review of the project per se. But I know that the school district, who I thought there was going to be, you're from the district, right? Okay. Was here to, would comment on it. And it sounds like during that meeting, unfortunately, I was not able to attend that meeting, that workshop. I did watch it and listen to it. Sounded like there was some common ground that was agreed to during that meeting about what the school district was looking to do and what the Historic Resources Committee was trying to get out of it. But that's where we are. I drafted a memo for you. And that's where we are, Tom. I think it's in the select board's hands at this time. The hearing was already set, again, approved by the planning board during their public hearing. So if the school district did want to get this on the ballot for November, we would, all we would need to do would be to do another public hearing with the select board. And then it would go to be set for warrant articles as we move forward along that calendar that Audra mentioned earlier that's already in place. So I think it's August we have to have that done by.
What's in place?
There's a calendar we have to follow in
Oh,
order to
that.
get to the November election. It's like months ahead of time. We have to have everything finalized. So it would be about August or late August, I think.
And that's why it's on the agenda tonight. We, the way we discussed it and the way I think that outlined it to the school district was to get it on, available for public comment as a discussion item and then as a public hearing. So tonight, we have a discussion item, and I hope we get a good discussion. And then hopefully before whatever that August deadline was that Katrina emailed, we have a public hearing and a vote. Yeah.
I think that would be no problem. Notice on this is not a very difficult thing. It's just a standard notice. We don't have to notice everyone else in the neighborhood because it is a use that's allowed in the zone currently residential. So it'd just be the standard public hearing notice that the town does.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Sure.
I know that Chris is here from the Historic Resources and Patrick is here from the school district. But before we bring them up, does anybody from the board have any comments or questions? I know that those of us who have been on the board have already seen the application.
And I did include their proposed amendment language that they had proposed in the packet for you.
So any comments or questions on that before we bring up school district and historic resources?
No, I can wait until after.
Okay. Patrick, do you want to come up first? Sure. Thank you.
I guess.
You'd have to introduce yourself, sorry.
Oh, I'm Patrick McCafferty.
Ooh, there's something really, I've been trying to not say it for the
Yeah.
whole time, but it's.
Do you want to swap out? Maybe the other one's
Oh,
better.
you think it's, I'm the problem?
No. Patrick's microphone. or the-
Okay.
Here, you can-
It was me too.
see.
So this actually, I don't know, this amplifies my voice. It's not just for,
Oh, I don't think that solved it.
it's me. I'm sorry.
It's your voice.
And Jeremy.
My name is Patrick McCafferty. I'm a resident of Camden and the former chairman of the SAD 28. My last meeting was last Wednesday, but I have the most knowledge of this project besides Maria, who is out of town. So I'll do my best.
I think, Patrick, what we'd like to hear is basically the impetus for the zoning change and the intention of the school district. I know it's a repetitive thing, but
Sure, no.
that's the discussion item tonight.
And maybe with the ringing, have you tried, if we turn down the speakers, that might. Thanks, sorry.
Should,
Go ahead.
am I standing in the right place? Is this?
You're good.
Keep
Go
going
ahead.
what
Go
you're
ahead,
doing.
Patrick.
Okay. Yes, no, we'd like the zoning change because we want to renovate the Elm Street School into teacher housing. 8 units is what I believe we've settled on for transitional temporary housing for teachers who we'd like to hire into the district. We lose a lot of candidates who apply from elsewhere in the United States who can't find a place to live here. And so after we've offered them the job, they retract their candidacy. So this is part of our solution. We own the building as it stands. It's a good opportunity for us. And we need to pursue this amendment change to be able to add additional living space on the first floor.
Anybody have questions or comments for Patrick?
If we don't approve this for the first floor, how many spaces would you be able to create?
I don't think it's financially viable for us to pursue the project if we can't make the entire 8 units. We're just, initial calculations say we're just at a break-even point with 8 units. So I believe the downstairs, I am actually not entirely sure. 2 units, is it 2 units that may be slated for downstairs?
I haven't seen the whole plan layout, but
I remember it was 4 on the bottom floor and then 4 on the second.
Yeah, that sounds familiar, right? And the 2 upstairs apartments have an additional floor. We're going to try and utilize the third floor to make the upstairs apartments, 2 of them have 2 floors. So we just may not pursue it if we can't do the,
So 6 is not good enough.
well, it would be 4.
Be 4 on the top, on the second floor, right?
Utilize some of the second floor for 2 of the apartments. Sorry.
You have to grab a
Yeah.
microphone,
The
Jeremy.
plan was to use some of the third floor for 2 of the apartments that are on the second floor. So there'd be 2 2-story apartments. if you-
Okay.
if you
Well,
want.
my math maybe isn't working right, because what they want to do is have 8 units, 4 of which are on the first floor. So I imagine the other 4 are on the second floor.
Well, right, but I think the intent was to have 2 of those 4 units that are on the second floor have a
Second floor.
third floor extended into the third floor.
2 stories, yeah.
Right.
Right, so
4.
that still makes 6. 2 in the bottom,
No,
4 in the middle. No?
4 on the first floor,
No, if
4 on
you,
the 4 on the second floor, and 2 that are on the second floor would also have space on the third floor.
yeah, that's great. So that's 8. So if you, because as you said, 4 on the first.
Yep.
4 on the second,
And then 2 of those 4.
but it's still considered a single
Yeah.
unit.
4
Even though it's 2-story, it's still a single unit.
Right, but that's 8. 4 on the first, 4 on the second. 2 that are on the second would have living space
Right.
on the third.
So if you're
Totally.
if you're only authorized to do 2 on the bottom, on the first floor, and you have 4 on the second floor, according to your plan, you would still be able to do the 2-story on a couple of the units on the second floor,
But
and
Chris,
you have 6.
that they can't do that because we're either approving residential use on the first floor or not.
Correct.
They
That's the-
already, I
that's the
thought
zone-
you said that they could
that's the
already.
They cannot.
They
They could only
can't.
do a 2-family, it would be a 2-family home only.
Oh,
to
okay,
utilize the
total.
First floor.
Okay.
okay.
You can't have multifamily.
I'm sorry,
It should be anything more than 2 is multifamily. You can't do that on the street, any residential on the street level if it's multifamily.
See, I misunderstood that. I thought when you said that it was, they would be allowed to do 2 residences
did
on a
too.
first floor because of the district that they're in. There's nothing wrong with that. I didn't understand that you meant that it would be 2 residences entirely.
Correct.
I was picking up where you were going.
I
just didn't
misunderstood
wanna
that too,
interrupt
Chris.
Jeremy.
That was confusing.
Patrick, so has the school district explored any other possibilities for the building if we didn't approve this zoning change? And you said it's not financially viable to just build 4 apartments. Does the school district have a backup plan for the building?
No. Oh, a backup plan for the building.
Yeah,
Not a
because it
backup
is
plan
going to
for
be
housing?
vacant here shortly, or it is vacant now, I think, that the Montessori is moving out, correct?
It will be.
Okay,
No, not that I'm aware of.
okay.
We haven't had any backup plan. This is how we'd like to use it. No plan B yet.
Susan?
I'm in favor of the change. I love I love the concept. I think that you're going in an incredibly valuable direction for the community.
Keep your microphone a little closer
Yeah,
to you so people.
thanks. I'm interested in if you've arrived at what the rental rates are going to be and if you've thought that through yet, and if are you market or below market? And you may not be ready to answer that, but.
Yeah, there is some analysis to that effect. I don't have it.
And I don't have that either.
Sorry, Susan.
Okay, no, that's fine.
I'm a very distant second as far as a replacement here for.
You're no
but
Maria.
I'm just a warm body.
Allison, and then
I
Kim.
hope she's not watching now.
Yeah.
So
I'm supposed to be retired.
we appreciate you. I too am definitely very in favor of the concept and the school district pushing ahead and not letting the perfect be the enemy of the good and all of that. I do have a couple questions though. First, I think there are financing questions, which maybe we've established we're not going to answer too much tonight. But I thought I heard you say it pencils out one way versus another. And so I guess I'm wondering if, in terms of the calculus for choosing the Elm Street School versus choosing another building that might be able to be purchased or built for the same purpose, if everybody were to work with you and encourage that building to be sold for some other purpose, have you looked at the costs of the alternatives? I thought I heard a few times in the presentation that like part of this is to be able to save the building. And I wonder if there are other ways, if that's a major thing, like worrying that the building's not going to be saved if you don't do this, if there are other ways that we could save the building and then meet the housing needs some other way.
I don't think this is a save the Elm Street type initiative. It's, we own the building and we have this problem with teacher housing. This just works out very well. I don't know if there's been any other examination of alternatives, building new, purchasing another building, etc. We just have this building. It's definitely in need of maintenance, and we're trying to kill two birds with one stone.
Do you know how much it's going to expected to cost?
No. There's an estimate. I've heard 4 million so far, but I think we need to analyze the cost of this further and spend more time on it once we know whether we're going to be able to do it or not.
Ken?
Yeah, thanks. It is a positive aspect of it to me that you would be saving the building. I think that's a great thing for downtown Camden, even though it's not your goal, but I'm glad to hear that it's going to be a result of it. I'm curious about, will you be reserving all 8 units for employees of the school system?
That's our intention at this time, yes.
So you wouldn't ever, there would be restrictions that it would be only for employees?
Never say never, but at the moment we see the demand. We have about 20 candidates a year apply from other places, from places outside of Maine that would need housing here. So 8 units would be helpful to house them.
So if the objective is to supply a need, then I'm hearing that you would want to offer these at below market rate. Is that part of the goal as well?
I'm not sure if it's below market rate. It'll be affordable, but I'd say probably below the current market rate, yes. The current environment we're in, yeah.
Yeah.
Be a more affordable rent.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I add just something on the zoning side for historic preservation? I was a CLG coordinator for the city of Bangor for years and years and years. And one of the things, if you look at historic preservation and zoning, what you want to do, you want to encourage investment in historic properties because they do need the love, the care, the maintenance over time. And what a lot of historic preservation ordinances provide, and we don't have one, but they provide is kind of an adaptive reuse provision. So a lot of historic preservation ordinances will give historic properties a lot of leeway in terms of zoning and what's allowed in that property in order to facilitate investment in historic properties. So I kind of look at this as an adaptive reuse of a historic property from a zoning and planning perspective. Just pointing that out.
Allison, and then I want to make sure that we bring Chris up too.
Yeah, why don't we let
Okay.
Chris go?
I've got it.
You've got one for
I-
Patrick?
I-
Okay,
yeah.
yes, please.
It's probably Patrick and also planning board, Jeremy. The change that's written there basically says to allow the ordinance change to allow the school to have rental in that building, correct? If it's owned by a school property, right?
School owned by S80 28.
Specifically.
Yeah.
And so if the school decided that they really didn't fill the place and so they need to go ahead and it's not viable because they can't keep 8 units filled, and they wanted to sell the building, what happens to the buyer who's not in SAD 28?
Yeah, I would see that they could not sell that to another residential operator, someone that wanted to continue to operate it as residential. Is the use that's allowed would only be for properties that are owned by SAD 28.
It would have to go to voters too. If they wanted to sell the building, there's a whole process for that. So we would have many opportunities to weigh in on that. It would be a town vote.
But this ordinance change would only allow it to continue as residential if it was owned by SAD 28. That's how it's
Right. Oh,
written. It
yeah.
doesn't
Yeah, I
say,
agree.
oh yeah, once it's built, it's good, it can go to somebody else.
Correct.
Right, I wouldn't want that.
This is a very, and this is my primary objection to it. Not that I'm opposed to the project overall, I haven't made up my mind, but is that this is very specific spot zoning. I mean, this is restrictive in spot. There's just no doubt about it. And it's something that this board has, for as long as there's been a board, something that we've tried to avoid, I think, is spot zoning. And as a planning purpose, spot zoning is not good when you're trying to develop a plan for an area. I think my first choice for this building would be to remain a school. I love the idea of kids walking to school. But I know that that's a little bit beyond this discussion and beyond our ability on this board to decide. But this is also, the points are well made about the preservation of the building and having some type of influx of money into the building. If the school department is intent on not putting money into the building unless this passes, I mean, that's an unfortunate circumstance. But I mean, I suppose this would guarantee that the school department is going to put money into the building.
I just wanted to address that quickly. I haven't said, or we haven't said that we don't intend on putting money into the building if this doesn't pass. We wouldn't continue with 4 units, just 4 units if this doesn't go through. We're going to have to do maintenance on the building. It's due.
Okay. Allison?
There are some other parts of the statute that require the school district to justify hanging on to property in perpetuity. So I don't think that they're really going to just, it did sound a couple times to me, there was almost like this threat to just let it sit and not take care of it. I assume that's not what would happen. But shoot, where was I? I do really agree overall that it is a sad thing for the town in a way to lose the vitality that comes with a building that's been a school for, since the beginning of time, really. And so that is going to change the character of our town. One of the things that sort of salvages it for me in some ways is the commitment, and I would want to get this written down in some way, that the commitment of having that playground be possibly improved and made a community space that's accessible all the time. I think that could be a major benefit to the town, because a lot of the time that playground isn't available currently when it's being used as a school. So in terms of maintaining that space, finding ways to maintain that space as a community hub with activity that, where people are doing more than just sleeping, is an important part for me.
But that's not part of the ordinance.
I know, that's why I would like, maybe that's part of the eventual planning board site plan approval, but I share the concern a little bit that when we're giving up in some ways, our final opportunity to weigh in, and I'm kind of trying to figure out what the other opportunities might be. If funding would ultimately probably have to go to voters at some point, that would be an opportunity. But it's kind of like we just change the zoning and then no more input.
I think there's ways that we could work with the school district to have them tweak their zoning application to include some sort of provision for public recreation on the property.
Residential, as long as there's a playground in
Correct.
the.
It's doable. It's almost like contract zoning.
Patrick, go ahead.
One point about it, becoming a school or remaining a school, that would be wonderful. I would love to see that as well. It should be noted that the enrollment for kindergarten has gone down from the 70s to the 30s in the last 2 years in a row. So I would love to obviously see our schools expand and not be able to hold the kids that are in them now, but it's not looking like that's the reality. In terms of input and things like that, where the school district is a public entity and all of our meetings on this and our deliberations are public. And, once we decide to do anything, it's like you guys, we're going to get lots of input about it and there'll be lots of opportunities for that. So it doesn't end here. Obviously, input, I think maybe you're speaking beyond maybe as a select board, the input, but you'll continue to have input and the community will continue to have input throughout the entire process.
Susan?
I think we need to be really, and this theme seems to run through a number of issues that happen in this town, this nostalgia that I think clouds our decision-making to an extent. The reality is that this community and this school district is notable for its quality and attracting people to come to live here. People buy homes here because they want their kids to be in this school district. But if we can't staff the schools with the quality of teachers that we need, that's going to have a ripple effect. And to have an opportunity to create affordable housing, it'll still be vibrant. It'll be different. The Montessori school's already made a commitment to a new property in their building. We have a beautiful kindergarten through however it goes to 4, and then so much money has been put into the school infrastructure in this community. But this piece has been left out. I think it's creative. I think it's innovative. And spot zoning, whatever. There's a reason why there's spot zoning, because you use it and it's useful, and I'm in favor.
Ken?
Yeah, I have a couple of follow-up questions. First, I agree with Allison that the playground is a positive feature, and I would hate to see that go away. And if that can be built in some way, that would be a very positive thing. My other question is, the ordinance says school administrative district. Does that cover all 12 grades, or are you limiting it to, the CSD is one group of classes. So is this open to all teachers in all grades?
Yes, it would be. It's like many things between the SAD and the CSD.
Mm-hmm.
The SAD owns it. The CSD and the SAD are linked in a number of ways. Like, for instance, the CSD pays half of the administration's salaries. This would be a case where, no, there would be free use between the districts, or interchangeable use between the districts.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is it only,
Oh, sorry.
one last thing, is it only for teachers or any employee?
Any employee. A quick point about the playground. Our intention is to improve the playground, open it to the public, remove the fence, and have it be accessible all day long, as opposed to not accessible now during school hours.
Thank you, Patrick. Jeremy, Patrick, if you could stay local. Chris, I assume you're here to speak tonight on this topic as well.
Hi, Chris Frieden, Historic Resources Committee. I don't have too much to say. We were graciously brought into the process, even though we have no real formal,
Authority.
authority in the approval process. But it was nice to kind of collect some of the historical photos, share some considerations and questions, and have a discussion. So really, we kind of stand in support of the project as well. And we just had some very kind of light wish list types items that we kind of brought out in our discussions. And we've kind of touched on some of them now. And that is, our concern is the streetscape. The building itself has been altered slightly over time, but as much as can be maintained in terms of the character of the building would be on our wish list. And there is the Conway Boulder there, which is kind of a nice landmark in the town. And right now it's a little bit obscured by the fence. And so hearing that you're talking about removing the fence and that there's going to be some work done on the playground, I think that's fantastic. So there's really not much for us to say. Just would love to see the building maintain its character and, maintain or improve the streetscape. That's really it.
Thank you, Chris. And along the points that Chris made, a positive aspect of this project, I believe, is that at one point there was discussion of dormers on the third floor to accommodate more housing. But at this point, as I understood it from Joe Versillo, the architect, for budget reasons, we're not really going to see much of a adjustment on the roof line. And that's the reason for having the stairways internal to the apartments. They're just going to basically build a third floor bedroom for those apartments and not create a third floor living space more than a bedroom. Am I correct in what I've said there, Patrick and Jeremy?
I think that's accurate, Tom.
Okay. Does anybody else we don't have to, this is just a discussion. We are going to have a public hearing on it. Does anybody have any other comments or questions on this particular project?
Great point about the Conway Boulder. The reason it was put there was so that no child would ever not learn the story of William Conway, who was a local hero, just like a low-level military man. We should really have a Conway Day someday. But I think we have forgotten, despite the placement of the boulder. So
Okay.
add that to your pot of input.
Thank you, Patrick. We're going to invite you back.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jeremy.
Just on process from here, just so I can line things up.
Sure.
As far as hearings, you want me to work with Maria and the school
Yes,
district?
please. Let's
prepare
and make sure
something
that we get it.
The playground and all that stuff. And
Absolutely. We'll need to take a vote before this becomes the warrant article deadlines.
sure.
So
Okay, that sounds
probably
good. I just,
late July, first meeting in August.
first meeting in August probably sounds
You can
better
do
for
that?
me. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I'm on vacation the end of July, so.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Jeremy. Okay. Okay, item 8A on tonight's agenda is hawkers and peddlers license for Popped at the Public Landing. I don't see Courtney here tonight. Does anybody?
I received a
Okay.
bit of public comment about this.
Thank you, Audrey.
So Barb Olin from the Garden Club is partnering with the town to do a project to fix up some of the green space that was adjacent to where the popcorn cart was last season. And she just wanted to ask that if this was approved, it be approved for a different location so that just there wouldn't be any conflicts with the landscaping improvements and the work that they're doing.
Okay,
That's part of what the woman from the Garden Club mentioned when she came to speak, that they raised so much money during their garden tour that they're taking on a few more projects. Is that?
Yes, and that's one of them
Okay.
is helping us with that space.
I strongly agree with that, but I would like things to take up parking spaces rather than green space if we move forward.
sure. I'll say that I really pushed hard for a public landing policy. I wanted to have something a little more concrete than this. I don't like taking these on one at a time. Hawkers and peddlers, I'd rather have a policy, at least for that section of town. But here we are, and we didn't get a public landing policy put in place yet. I think that, from what I saw that Courtney did last year down there, it was low impact, and many people were enjoying, having another vendor in that area. So in general, I'm supportive of this.
I agree with that. I'm sorry to have missed that meeting where the policy was discussed, and I think we really do need to continue to move toward that, maybe a slightly different policy and incorporating more opportunities for non-commercial setups and how we're going to handle those, because ultimately that's what I would like to see more of on the public landing, is more places for people to be. But I think, yeah, that here we are. It was a positive thing overall for Camden residents with very little negative, and it doesn't mean it has to stay into perpetuity, but yeah, I would be in favor of moving forward using, not that green area, but a parking space of some sort or similar pavement.
Audra, if we did use a parking space, there'd be a different way of billing for this? That's the one thing about the parking space. Those do have they're a commodity.
Yes, I mean, that part of it would be up to the board, how you'd like to handle that. Just because we have paid parking down there, doesn't mean that needs to apply to a vendor, because you're choosing to allocate space for a different purpose than just parking.
Yeah, I don't think that just because it wasn't in a parking space that it should have been cheaper. If anything, you could argue that the cost to the public is greater if it takes up a place where a picnic table could go. I mean, different people answer that question differently. So I think we have to have the discussion about what the fee would be, sort of independent.
Do we have a hawkers and peddlers fee? What is that amount? Do we know?
We just have an application fee. We don't by ordinance have a fee that we
Okay.
specify.
No, the only thing comparable, Tom, would be at La Cave, right? There's that patio area outside that the Smiths have a license agreement to use that area. And I don't recall what that area, I think it's $2,500
That's
now.
my recollection too, 2,500 a year.
I think it's $2,500 a year for that space. And I don't recall off the top of my head how big that area is, but that's what we have in that area.
Where is that again?
La Cave restaurant on the backside of the hotel there. That patio outside is town property.
Oh.
And so they have a license agreement. They do annually with us for $2,500, I believe.
Oh, yeah, and we argued about it a bunch. I
Yeah.
think one of,
And they
Many
have that for the
conundrums.
entire year too. And so I'm just throwing that out there. It's for the year. They're using that for $2,500 and certainly Courtney last year, I don't know what she paid, but it was just a small portion of the year that she was down there. So
but there's a benefit. Part of the reason that we want to do that, there's a benefit to a year-round presence. I don't think
Sure.
La Cave is really overflowing year-round. If they were, that would be great.
Yeah.
It seems to me a little bit more similar to Harbor Dogs.
that's fair too. And I forget what we're charging them. I forgot about that. Yep.
Would we, I think before with the idea of the policy and having several vendors, there was talk of maybe using the portion of the parking lot between the pump station or the public bathrooms and the back of 16 Bayview.
In that policy, there were 4 spaces that we were looking at. That policy had provided for 4, including the what we called the legacy vendor, which was Harbor Dogs. And I had tried to lay out, I think there were 2 spaces laid out where Harbor Dogs is. So Harbor Dogs and then another over the other area behind the Commercial Street and then into the landing
I like the idea much better of them all being
in one spot.
in that part of the parking lot. Seemed
I
better. The location of Harbor Dogs right now, I don't think is
optimal.
ideal if we're
I
gonna,
agree.
right, but I liked the idea of moving them over there. Also,
Susan.
maybe no generators. Did we talk about generators or anything like that?
Susan, then Ken. Susan, go ahead.
I don't recall where she was located last year. Do you?
Right, by the bell.
Okay,
Backside of the buildings,
right.
things over in the corner by
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
falls.
Down the alleyway.
She moved around a little, it seems
Yeah.
like.
She was a hawker.
Yeah. And what size is the,
5x8.
5x8, so.
And parking spaces are generally 9 by 18.
mhm.
And
Has she stated
Dave,
a preference?
Yeah.
Has she stated a preference, or is it up to us to determine where
I
she's
think
going to
that,
be?
I think the hawkers and peddlers license is really vague.
I mean,
and
it's
we
our,
have-
it's our,
Very
it's
vague.
our, the town's
Choice.
property and we can dictate where
Yeah,
she.
we can
should
give her
go.
direction, we can
Yep.
set fees. Ken, Let's dig into that. Ken, I know you have something.
Yeah, this kind of proposal has been coming up since last year, and the select board has always said, wouldn't it be nice if we had a policy? And Jeremy drafted a policy, but we still don't have it in front of us.
No, it was in front of you before and it was killed. So if you want me to bring it back to you folks as a new board with some changes, I can do that, but it
I
was,
think we should talk about it because facing one at a time, these one-off applications doesn't work. We should have a policy.
I think that was Tom's comment for sure. It doesn't work.
I missed that meeting too, so you and I can't be blamed.
But I love your term, the legacy vendor, and so has the POP to become a legacy vendor? Because I would lean against it. I would vote against new vendors down there, but I don't want to deprive anybody who is counting on a income for this particular year. I also have questions about noise. I mean, is there a generator involved? Is that part of the application process? Hours, does the applicant need to guarantee that they're going to be down there 24/7 or 7 days a week? Are we reserving a space for somebody who's going to be there for weekends only? I think these things need to be spelled out. And the fees, the fee needs to be spelled out. We're giving a very valuable space with, I'm assuming, this trash pickup and bathroom space, not for free. It definitely shouldn't be for free, but I have no idea what the fee should be. My comparison is the artists, the vendors in the annual Harbor Arts and Books Fair that the library does. Those folks spend $275 and they get a 10 by 10 space for 2 days. So there is a fee and it's substantial. And I would love to see a policy rather than having a one-by-one, one-off discussion. Thank you.
Dave, I saw you had your hand up. You have to come to the microphone though. Or we can hand it to you.
I know this is kind of out of the box, but there's a space over there you really don't think about, and it's the Chamber of Commerce deck. I mean, it's a space that's not really used.
Thank you.
hers is on a trailer. Remember, I'm not sure she can get that trailer up onto that deck.
I don't think anybody wants to walk on that deck. Susan, you had a comment.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Chris?
I know last year there was a lot of discussion about this. Yeah, Jeremy, if you wouldn't mind re-bringing that back, the policy. I think it wasn't a good timing for when that was brought forward. And I think provide it to us again. Let's take another look at it. Because I agree that doing this as one-offs never feels right, as much as it as well doesn't feel right to disallow someone to try to gain some income. On the other hand, though, the lack of viable infrastructure for that, what the application doesn't, we don't go there in the application as far as what sort of infrastructure do you need. When I approved that last year, I took it as what it said, which was I will be selling popcorn. I didn't understand that meant I will be making popcorn on site, which I agree, it smells nice. However, the generator is not. And also, I got a lot of feedback from people in town who sell popcorn in their tax-paying brick and mortar businesses and saying that that does hurt us when other vendors are able to do this at a really nice price that doesn't certainly equate to the price that we pay with our taxes. So I'm not really a supporter of doing that this year, based again on the feedback we received, the generator noise that was unexpected, lack of equity to the other businesses. It's the right thing to do on the flip side, to come up with a policy. And again, it doesn't have to be, as our discussion yesterday, an ordinance for these sort of things, but a policy. And there were some elements in Jeremy's policy that I don't remember super well, that it didn't strike me as this was something that would have a lot of community support as it is, but it is the right thing to have something. So as what some other member said, it doesn't feel like a lottery that, oh, I got mine accepted when somebody else's didn't. And all of those things to me have to be weighed and weighed carefully in creating that policy about what we're doing with that valuable space. That's all I have to say.
Allison?
I thought Ken made very good points about like the hours. Not that I necessarily think we're ready to kind of micromanage that or have something in place, but if we're gonna, to me, if we're using public property, it has to be meeting some kind of public need that we can identify. And I think there is an identifiable need because there's a lot of times down there where nothing is open, even some of the licensed things are not open and people can't find just a quick snack. And so I think there's a benefit here to being able to meet that need that some of the other businesses aren't meeting. You know, any of the businesses down there could have a takeout window and be open 24 hours a day. But for whatever reason, they've calculated that doesn't work for them. So I like the idea of kind of, as we do develop a policy, trying to establish, you know, what's the unmet needs so that it's not just people going down there and selling during the, you know, the easy time all the time. So, but I don't think we're ready to dictate what those hours are, but.
Susan, then Chris.
I think the competition idea, there's a red herring because you can get a Pepsi every 3 steps in this town and nobody's saying, oh, they're selling Pepsi and so am I. So I think that the notion that people are feeling undercut in their popcorn business by Courtney's venture, I think is a red herring. And I like I just like that this is a woman, a single mom. She's got an idea. She meets a need. If you're down there, you're waiting to get a table someplace, or it's after service. You could starve to death in this town after 8 quite often. So I think, but I do appreciate the idea that we could fine tune this so that it's not feeling like a lottery for people. Fairness is going forward is, I would put that in our goal setting, would be at the top of the list, I think.
I think Ken brought up a good point too about, hours and how many days is she going to be down there? If we're going to take up a parking space, how do we, how does the PD or Steve Pixley manage that parking space waiting for Courtney? And maybe she's at another event that weekend or that day. And how are we managing it? So I think there are some things that we need to clarify with Courtney to address where she's going and how long will she be there, and will she be there on X number of days? And that was kind of I did address that in the policy. I tried the best that I could. So
How was that? What did you do about that?
Chris, I
You
don't
don't
recall off
remember.
the top of my head. Once you guys killed it, it went out of my brain. So
All right.
I'll bring it back.
A word of support on this particular application, and really any hawker and peddler application. I can only recall Courtney, Mark for selling lobsters.
That was
Any others in two years
during
now?
the pandemic,
Yeah.
but that was.
Right.
that's-
So my point being is if this was a gold mine, it was significant effect on economics and that sort of thing. I think we would have more people applying. Maybe it's just not well publicized, but the infrequency of the hawkers and peddlers application indicates to me that this is still a job where you probably have to hustle and put in a lot of work and effort and time to make it
Really work.
go. And for that reason, if we ever got to the point where we were getting 10 of these a year, I mean, of course, we're moving in the right direction because we're talking about a public landing policy. But for now, given that this year we've received one and the summer season is upon us, I actually feel comfortable moving forward with this and giving Courtney some leeway. And I do think guidance too. We could talk about that. But in my opinion, we should move this forward. You know, the solstice is upon us. The 4th of July is upcoming. If we're going to give anybody a shot at it, you know, she's established that she's committed to it. She's done it before. It was fairly low impact. Given some things, we could actually ask her to get a quieter generator, for instance, put a decibel limit on it, whatever we want. But I think that we should give her a chance at this. And again, because our public landing isn't overcrowded with vendors right now, I don't think anybody would argue that it is.
I agree with that. I don't know.
And she is proposing to go through Windjammer weekend, which I think is what, August 30th, right? So that's where her application says it's June, mid-June through Windjammer weekend.
I just think it says, is it taking part of as a part of a public event?
No, if you go up to
Oh,
the
it goes
top,
further.
little
further on?
higher up, Tom,
Okay,
it says dates.
okay.
And it was
Yeah,
June, it was
mid-June to
mid-June.
Windjammer.
Oh, sure, yep, right there on the top.
But all
line.
day, every day, or?
It just says those dates, and that's something I think we should probably work with her to figure out and locate her in an
Okay.
appropriate location, so that we're not tying up a parking space if she's not going to be there waiting for her, you know?
We could just make her pay for parking too.
It's too bad she's not here. Chris, go ahead.
I think she
That-
has to work until after 8. We could just have her first come, first serve if there's a parking spot available.
Interesting idea. On the policy thing, I remember one of the things that I was thinking at the time is that I'd like really, and I don't think it opens it up too much to say, I would rather see it as a public space policy than just that particular
For the landing.
location.
I totally agree.
And the reason why is because of, somebody else might say, hey, I want to do something at Lake
Tannery.
Beach or Tannery.
Or
you know?
Knowlton Street parking lot, somewhere.
So, yeah, that if we could make a policy that
Mhm.
covers all of
Absolutely.
those things and maybe in a way do it once. Granted, there might be nuances for certain facilities because there's certain infrastructure available. I think that was one of the reasons why I wasn't real hip on how that looked. And if we could, that would help.
I'll work on getting you another policy.
Well,
back to
yeah, and I'm sorry that, don't feel like the work was wasted. I know it can be tough when something doesn't go through the way you've written it.
Well,
I
again,
know.
it was just, I wrote it as a draft for you guys to
Yep.
tweak it and tear it apart if you wanted.
I think we were tired by then, but that's okay. It's not that it's not important to do,
Yep.
because we do have other things. In fact, whereas one of those articles that was recently passed concerning the tannery and wanting to keep that public space, there is intent in the town to have public spaces that work for community stuff. In that, I don't remember what the vote was on the tannery, the percentage of yes to no's. I don't remember.
It was
I
very-
think
it was
70-30, I
overwhelming.
think.
Yeah,
overwhelming.
it was significant. So there's interest in how that we have things like this available for the public. So it's worth going at it again. No, I'll end there. Thank you.
If you guys are going to approve this, I guess I would maybe ask that you allow staff to find the appropriate location and to come up with an appropriate fee that's similar to, I guess, Harbor Dogs.
Yeah,
comparable
I was
for
going to say,
area?
we could make a simple agreement if you do decide to approve it. And, we could specify some of the things that you talked about here, like hours of operation, location, fee, that sort of thing. And, we would fashion it after Harbor Dogs because that's kind of something that
Similar.
it's there already.
Harbor Dogs takes up 2 parking spots essentially, so Courtney would take up 1, so we'd take that into account too,
Yes.
please.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
we'd look at the area that they're using and
Okay.
that just seems appropriate.
sure. I'm definitely in favor of that. I do think that we have another opportunity. This is, again, a short-term agreement. And as we think about what we want on the public landing, what we want the public landing to be, what we want available there, this is a good opportunity to go down there and see if that works. And if it does work, expand on it with what our policy might look like. The good and the bad that comes out of this might help us formulate a public space policy, a public landing policy.
I do think we could send the message that a lot of the other places in town, if we were to get applications, it would be much easier. Yes. So during COVID, there was this pop-up Camden thing at the tannery, and we made that available on certain days. And, all of these vendors or stores that couldn't have people coming into the store, they could have a tent or it worked for some of them. But I do wish more ideas would come from not the public landing, but definitely in favor of moving forward as described, but right now.
And is there a way that this would be clear if it was approved that it is only for that designated space and
Oh, yeah, we would make it
couldn't find
clear.
it that same vendor at other public spaces?
Correct?
Ken?
Sorry.
So I'm leaning towards voting for this with the understanding that I'd be voting for it in the absence of a policy. I'd much prefer a policy, and any subsequent application that arises this year, I would vote down. The only reason I would vote for it this year is because there's the legacy issue. So
I hear what you're saying. I will say that if we're going to make Courtney wait for a public landing policy, and I'm the world's biggest optimist, she's not going to get this thing open for a little while if we make her wait for that.
right, no, that's what I'm saying. I'm also assuming that we're not going to have a policy in the next
Yeah.
2 meetings. So
No, I don't think so either.
Hammer one out for us, Chris. Come on. Maybe you can.
I think you've said enough.
And there's no guarantee, this does not imply that next year
No.
there'll be a spot reserved for.
That's right. Yep,
Right,
no
unlike
guarantees.
the Harbor Dogs sort of 5-year understanding agreement.
And even then, it's
Right.
when we come up with a public landing policy or a public space policy, we can set it any way we want as a board. Okay. So having said all that, and it was a great discussion, I'm going to ask for a motion on item 8A.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded that we approve this hawkers and peddlers license.
With the condition that they work with town staff to find their appropriate location and come up with an appropriate fee based on what's fairness.
Exactly,
Fairness.
with
Yeah.
those conditions.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? 4-1. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 8B tonight is the approval of the wastewater special revenue fund budget. Audra or Dave, you want to introduce us?
Yes, and I believe Jody is available on Zoom to answer any questions.
Super.
So this is, we touched on this a little bit. So there are 3 different budgets that the select board is responsible for reviewing, and 2 that you're ultimate authority on approving. The 2 that you approve are the snowball budget, which was done at a couple meetings prior, and then this budget, the wastewater special revenue fund. So our wastewater superintendent / public works director is here to answer any questions about the budget. We designed this without any capital projects built in because the sort of year-to-year operations and maintenance budget isn't really the appropriate place for the scale of capital projects that we have in front of us. That's really something that will be covered off on by the bond. So, what you see before you is really just kind of the normal operations and maintenance. You'll see that some of those costs have been reduced because we're operating in the first year of the brand new plant. So, in the past, we would put quite a bit of money into some of the reserve accounts for things like, maintenance of equipment within the plant. And that's a cost that has gone down. We still have, major repairs that need to be made to the collection system. So, that's really where the focus is going. So less need for sort of the intensive maintenance that we were providing on an annual basis when the plant was in its former kind of aged and end of life state, more focus on collection system maintenance. So that's kind of a highlight. Dave might have some other specific things he wants to point you to.
Sure. So some of the things that change the most are, of course, we accounted for staff time that's from town hall that's accounted towards treatment plant work. So the attorney, the finance, the town manager, those things have been included in this budget. You'll see some increases in electricity due to the equipment improvements that were made. So there is more equipment. So there is an increase in electrical usage, but there is a decrease in the volume of sludge that's created from the treatment plant from a more efficient centrifuge, which fortunately lowered the amount of sludge, but because of PFAS and sludge, the price of sludge went up. So there wasn't so much of a difference between the two. You'll see the engineering went down a little bit because we have an in-house engineer. Chemical usage you'll see has gone up due to the fact that we're going to disinfect year-round versus seasonally. That's not mandated, but it will be in our new license. Our license is expiring this year, so we're not probably anticipating a new license immediately, but we'll have to function under the rules of the old license. But we're taking upon ourselves to disinfect year-round so that we don't have, any problems in the wintertime. So theoretically, people could swim in the wintertime and not have to worry about anything. Those are really the highlights. The majority of the work that we're going to do on the collection system was accounted for in the bond, so that's not really carried in here. We put a little bit of money in the reserve account, $50,000 in I&I reserve and collection system reserve. You'll see a little bit of difference in the information technology because of some licensing hardware that we need with the new SCADA system and some increase in GIS updates that we need to do. And that's pretty much it. Those are the highlights. Pretty much everything else, give or take, stayed around the same. But I'm willing to answer any questions that you have on the numbers. It's a pretty simple budget. I think it's, I feel pretty good about it. But it is a change from before because of the plan upgrade, new personnel and staff, and for accounting for other staff time from town hall.
Thanks, Dave. Does anybody have it? Allison?
What are we looking at for rate increases?
So we were at,
I know it's in here somewhere. I'm just,
let me see.
We were at $9.94
Yeah, we went
per
to-
100 cubic feet. Now it's $10.88.
Yeah, $10.88. I did a quick little breakdown for an average customer, if that helps you. So we asked Maine Water, who does our billing, to give us some average usage. And she broke it down into three kind of categories. So it's commercial, residential, and single unit. And I can give you the difference between what it was and what it is for each one of those quarterly. So quarterly, the difference would be $46 for a commercial unit. per
on
quarter.
average.
On average. A residential would be $7.36 per quarter on average. And for a single unit, it would be $3.12 per quarter.
Well, I must be above average then.
So those are just the straight calculated numbers that I got, but that's quarterly also. So you'd have to multiply that number times 4.
And the bond payment, the 12.5 million, when is that going to be?
That is,
That's already.
that's in here, yeah.
That's in here?
I
Yeah,
believe.
it was in the FY24 budget too.
No, no, the one that just passed, not the,
Oh,
not the,
Yeah, no,
I
that
was like,
won't-
wow, that's amazing.
No,
but
no,
it's
no,
still,
no. No, that'll be 2 financial years from now.
But that won't be the wastewater budget. That'll
Well,
be,
that's what we really need to decide because there's a lot of wastewater expenses in there
Part of it.
and
Some portion of it.
so
which
you'll
will be
have
our decision,
to,
but
yeah, how much is,
So my thoughts are on that is proper cost accounting when we do the projects. So when we do these projects, there's certain parts of that project will be allocated towards, public works type of infrastructure improvements, which would be taxed or taken from tax dollars. And then there'll be the sewer portion, which we would keep that separate and account for that as rate users. So it'll be just a cost tracking. type of thing.
possibly.
I mean, if that's,
I think we'll-
that'd be the easiest way to do it, if you wanted to
Mhm.
just, separate the two, because that's what they are. If you wanted, it's totally up to you. You could fund, some of the wastewater portion through taxation.
and we don't need to get into that too much tonight. That is definitely a future discussion that has implications that may go beyond Camden.
But so the collection system reserve and I'm noticing a low balance in the I&I reserve, for instance. And so is the thought there that that some of the things that we find that we might want to fix could be part of the bond? Or,
So some of them will be part of the bond. And another thing that we need to talk about is the downtown TIF.
oh,
Because
right.
that's become very lucrative. And fixing I&I issues in the downtown is
Exactly
very,
what it-
very permissible and very spelled out in the downtown TIF as a priority.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
So Dave, your FY24 budget, you're already surpassed what it was. What is it that's made you surpass your expected FY24 budget?
Current budget.
Yes, you didn't make it, probably.
I wasn't owner of that budget for most of the year, so I really wasn't prepared to answer that question, honestly. I think it was just more of,
I just noticed that there's more than you expected in workers' comp. Maybe it's immaterial. Maybe it's just by chance that you're,
yeah,
over budget, but you've accounted for that in FY25 budget.
I took care of this one.
Okay,
yeah.
that's basic,
Yeah.
getting down to the basis of the question. Okay.
I don't know the methodology for how a lot of that was arrived at, some of it the
Okay.
prior year.
Sure.
I hadn't looked at that part of it yet, but we have we have a plan for making up
I&I?
that. No, I'm saying what Tom's question,
Oh, yes.
That- we're going to fund that deficit somehow, or is
Yes.
from the undesignated fund or the,
No, I mean, since it's its own fund, and it kind of ebbs and flows on a year-to-year basis, and there isn't a huge deficit. It's something that we're going to be able to cover in this coming year.
have we raised rates enough is, I guess, what I'm asking
Well,
too, or is this being overly conservative so as to, to not raise rates?
I mean, we are trying to keep rates as low as possible.
but be able to pay for expenses.
Right.
I mean, the way this budget works is you come up with your cost of running the operation, and then you adjust your
Revenue to
your
meet it.
revenue side to match that
How often do you reset the rates?
Every year.
annually.
Every year, yeah.
Annually. So, you really shouldn't go into a budget like this saying, I'm going to back calculate what it should be. You should do the budget for what it costs to do the work, and then come up with what the rate should be at. And then it's a discussion at that point with you folks to decide, okay, what don't we want in here that we proposed?
Yeah, and I will say that this current financial year that we're working through, it was a very awkward financial year to budget for the wastewater treatment plant because it was the first year when a lot of the new systems came online.
Mhm.
So things like the centrifuge, which is a very, very different piece of equipment than like the old sludge press belt. There are all kinds of new expenses associated with it, like polymer that gets added to, further solidify the sludge. The electricity costs, we knew they were going to be much higher than the old belt press, but you really need to sort of go through that testing phase to figure out like how many times are we running the centrifuge, what's the cost of that, so that we're able to sort of calculate and have like a good solid idea of how to budget for it. So I think we all feel much better about FY25 after going through this year than we did going to FY24, which was always going to be a little bit of a best educated guess because everything was new and operating differently.
I think the current budget year too, we were kind of half and half. We weren't really fully complete in the project. This year, we're fully complete in the project. And there was a lot of recalculation of everything that had been done. Like the chemical usage, the GIS stuff, the software stuff,
Electricity,
all this stuff changed, and it all had to be recalculated. And there was a lot of calculations, and that had to go into estimating where we're going to be because they're so much different than before. Because they didn't have a SCADA system, they had a belt press, not a centrifuge. They had all these different pieces of equipment. They were much older. In one regard, they didn't cost as much to operate, but they weren't as efficient either.
Dave, is the communications line, which has jumped up quite a bit, is that SCADA system? And
No, so that's a good one. I forgot that one. Glad you pointed that out. So that was what they had done is they had purchased a new telephone system that's VoIP, and it's that type of new telephone system through Harbor Digital, and that's the increase from that you're seeing there. And I also think that's tying into the town's system that's going to be implemented.
That's not an increase compared to 24. You mean line 601-1520? I mean, there was a big increase
1520.
from 20.
But the expected in 24 was 5,500, and we've already
That's
almost
true.
tripled that. And then, of course, we had something similar happen in 23, which surprises me. But if it is that voice over the internet system, and it's implementing that, I can understand.
Yeah, I guess I see your question now with from 5 to 14 on the actuals.
Yeah, and then there's a cell phone in there also, an extra cell phone, I believe.
Okay.
On the wages, is the $30,000 increase in full-time wages as a result of new employees that came on in 2024, and now we're accounting for 12 months of their wages in 25?
So we with the reorganization, we have the engineer, myself, and the office manager, I think that, and all those three salaries are divided up a bunch between the two different departments.
So, right, my question was 25, it's 494. 24 is 460. It's $30,000 difference.
Yeah, and that's
Is that because of a salary that was only carried for so many months in 24?
It's because of a
Or is it because of it?
restructuring. It's a restructuring of the personnel that are in that department. So we're carrying an engineer now, and that $30,000 difference, I think, is accounting for those three different salaries.
So I know you said restructuring. Is that because they were funded somewhere else, or is that because of an increase in wages provided to those folks?
It's because we have more quality individuals in those.
Well, and also
Same
what
individuals or
what
more?
Dave was saying
different
before.
The new engineer, probably.
Yeah.
Well, also a portion of like my time, Bill's time, Jody's time is accounted for in here as well, and it was not in the past. So it's a combination of that as
Oh,
well
right.
as, the staff and the treatment plan. And some of them get step increases as well. So I think that focusing on just the restructuring ignores all those other factors that have contributed to that difference.
And there was an increase in one person's
Yes.
salary
So
also.
the answer is a combination.
It's a
of-
combination of
Yeah, step
one
increases.
increase, three different people
Yep.
accounting for the people, Bill, Audra, and Jody's time are included in this
Yeah.
budget. That weren't included at all last year.
I'm actually surprised that that's this extended the increase 33,000 and
Right.
change.
And I guess
given-
just to be very clear,
50.
the restructuring didn't add a new position. It didn't add a new position. So it just reorganized the amount of positions that we had. And it also wasn't a major increase because of the way, how it was reallocated. Instead of having 2 department heads, we have 1 department
Right,
head.
that's really the
Sure.
big part.
And we'll see a corresponding decrease for Audra, Bill, and Jody somewhere else. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yep.
So the $50,000 increase is that, okay?
I mean, possibly, this is your first year doing this budget, so probably some of the, you're working with the notes from before,
Which don't.
just the, when you go down to like full-time wages, just all the notes that are associated with each line. Like this, so I'm just saying, like, some of those might not be fully,
Explained.
right.
Yeah.
Well, the full-time wages says, we could have probably put in the other part in there with Audra, Jody, and
Is that where that goes? Is that where? I don't need to belabor. I'm just saying. It
Have,
might,
lines down below, one for prorated town manager and finance director, and then a prorated legal line, down below health insurance.
okay, so that is actually somewhere else.
oh, that's true. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's essentially $60,000 in addition to the $50,000 increase.
So what we did is we now have an engineer on board. We now have an administrative office coordinator. And then, of course, we have the wastewater superintendent. But we're fortunate enough to be able to share those 3 positions 50-50 with the Public Works Department. So that would have been significantly larger had we not been able to do that. And there was some changes in health insurance as far as who chooses what plan, as far as family or single. So that represents an increase as well.
Jody, could you direct me again to those line items where the town manager, yourself, and
Sure. So if you're looking at the admin
8
wastewater
down from
budget,
the top.
okay, yes,
Yeah, right under the health insurance line.
okay. Thank you.
So
33,
sorry,
okay.
that was my mistake. I confused everyone.
Prorated
Yeah,
wages. That's actually,
The 8th line down from the top.
that's lower than what some other towns do when they charge their employee time to, but I think it's a step in the right direction to be accounting for your time. Is Jeremy's time at all in there?
No.
No.
So we just donate Jeremy anytime he gets
Jeremy
involved.
really doesn't do a lot of wastewater planning.
Okay.
I mean, I guess,
Keep my eye out for that.
Mountainside, actually, so
What?
Mountainside, I guess this year he did.
Right.
Yeah, he did this year, actually, you're right.
So back to Dave's original point, the restructuring caused a $50,000 increase in wages. Is that correct now?
I would say the restructuring and then step increases
Also COLA.
and the cost of living adjustment.
And there may have been some addition of, I mean, whether you call it restructuring or
Well-
staffing appropriately,
The wastewater department didn't have an administrative person.
right?
They didn't have an engineer. They had a director, or superintendent, which is what I'm replacing. So in theory, you're ending up with an administrative assistant who's answering all the calls for both departments and an engineer for both departments for that increase. That's what it ends up being. And
Is there an
then,
engineering savings at all with
yeah.
the contracted engineers?
Well, if you look down, there was a $5,000 decrease in engineering and professional services. I know it doesn't completely offset the cost of having an engineer, but You know, we have an engineer on staff now and a good one.
If we're going to do all this work,
We couldn't do it without
We-
those.
Well, yeah, and I
got,
guess that's the
like-
point.
and in terms of whether it's coming out of the bond or coming out here, that'll be a question, I guess, for a future select board, like who should be paying those costs? If our in-house engineer is able to do certain things that would have been contracted out as part of major capital projects before and then included in that budget.
And another important point, if you look at the public works budget, the public works budget had a 0% increase or a 0.2 or something. It was small, but you also have an engineer part-time over there now, and you have an administrative person there now. That's the big difference. And those resources are being shared between the two departments because they're tied together. I think overall, it's what we needed in order to do what we're going to do with the bond and do all these projects. I can't do all of those things by myself. That would be impossible.
Does anybody from the public have any comments or questions on the proposed wastewater special revenue fund budget? To me, it looks like a reasonable budget. I think you've accounted for, given the new plant configuration, you've accounted for that. So, less unexpected, I hope. And again, a reasonable budget.
And I apologize for the confusion about the salary piece. This is my first time going through this budget. And I did see that before. I should have brought that up. So
Looks good to me. I don't know if maybe we should be raising rates a little bit more, but as long as our undesignated fund balance and we have a with no cash flow problems, then I'd say we should move ahead. When do rate increases go into effect?
I don't know.
That
the
part
answer to
always
that.
confuses
So the
me.
quarter starts in July and July, August, September, and then the bills come out in October, right, Jody?
Yes.
Anybody want to make a motion on the wastewater budget?
Move to approve the wastewater budget as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
Nice job again. Item 8C, Select Board Liaison Committee Appointments. This is towards the end of the packet. We'll need to be there to all follow along. So we'll just go right down the list. And Audra, feel free to chime in if you see anything that we're missing or if you want to point out along the way. Budget Committee, of course, is the whole board. Camden Rockport Pathways. Allison, you've traditionally done that, correct?
I have traditionally done that, although I'm not possessive and of most things. And I do see some benefit to moving people around sometimes, or maybe taking turns with different select board members coming for a time. I am getting a little, I can't do every committee. I sometimes feel I'm struggling to make every meeting of theirs. So
Sure. I would say that as a liaison, it's not necessary to make every single meeting.
thank you.
But, I just think that's a little bit much to ask, given what all of us have in our personal lives and otherwise here professional lives.
That's a good point to bring up.
Could I ask also, would it be possible to table this and have a revised listing that indicates how often they meet and when they
Yeah.
customarily meet?
When do you need to know this by Audra, liaisons? Because this is leaving some of the committees a little bit in limbo, given we have two new members.
If you'd like to take a crack at it this time, I can go through the schedule as you're talking about it and tell you when they meet.
Okay,
And if that gets too unwieldy, then we can always, have it.
sure.
set
We
out on
should
the
at least
table.
discuss it so that we've prepared for a further discussion.
Maybe some of it can be left till a later time.
Tom, I suggest we go through and then revisit and balance it out. So would we have a balance of?
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
So Camden Rockport Pathways, does anybody have a strong desire to be the liaison to that's probably the first prerequisite, that somebody really has a strong interest and wants to be involved in pathways and planning.
I mean, I do like it. I just, if somebody else wants it, then.
I know you do, Allison. Why don't we put you down for, at least, as we move down the list. And then Camden Conservation.
I would like to remain the liaison there, but invite anyone else to join also sometimes.
So we'll leave Allison on there.
What does the Cemeteries Association do?
Audra, can you give us a little brief?
Yeah, so they have their own budget because the care for the cemeteries and the budget of the funds associated with that are from cemetery trust funds. And so they, vote on their annual budget, and they'll vote on contracts for things like, if they want to repave a road, or the access roads in the cemeteries, or clean gravestones.
Maintenance.
Yep, they'll vote on maintenance the maintenance is provided by the Parks and Rec Department. These are sort of like the bigger
Yeah.
projects that they might need to contract for.
Do they meet during the day or in the
4
evening?
PM usually.
4 PM, and they don't meet monthly, they meet quarterly. I believe they try to meet quarterly.
They do a lot of different, I was the liaison before Stephanie.
Yep.
It kind of ebbs and flows what the issues are. Things have come up like whether to accommodate green burials was something that came up recently. Then the trees, policies for cleaning the headstones and
Okay, well, I can do that
There's a
unless
lot of
there's other
veteran stuff.
interest,
a lot of history there,
Looks
too.
like low-hanging fruit to me, and
Okay.
And you want it? Cemetery Association is
Actually, it would
10.
be probably
I love
really
it.
good
Alright.
for Ken with the history stuff.
Okay. Yeah, it certainly sounds interesting. EMS Performance Review Committee.
I'll continue on it. We haven't met, that meets quarterly in the evening. It has been meeting in Lincolnville. We haven't met since November or something like that.
Harbor Committee.
There is a requirement, though. There is an expectation that there's actually 2 people from each town board on that committee. It's part of those committees' bylaws.
Does it have to be 2 board members, or can it be a board member and,
Who counts as 2?
or
Oh, another, I'm sorry.
I was wondering if it could be another citizen, because we do have some citizens who
yeah.
have background on that would serve on that board well.
You're still talking about the EMS?
EMS,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a great idea.
Can it be
Unless somebody.
Absolutely. You
another
can-
citizen?
You can appoint citizens to serve on that.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because we have some people in town who know a lot about EMS and.
And it's really just the
It's the
the
review of the
ambulance
contract
contract,
with,
which
yeah.
I would like to, at some point, maybe turn that into something, I want to say bigger, but there's like this idea that it's to be a place to be talking about EMS, but then seems like it turns into really, oh no, it's just reviewing this
It's-
section of the contract.
The purpose of the meeting is for reviewing the contract. That's what it's for. As boring as that may be, or as refined, you might say, as that might be, that's what it is. That's the focus.
Harbor Committee.
So the Harbor Committee, that's the second Tuesday of the month at 8 AM.
I would really love to do the harbor committee, but it's so early.
It's typically about an hour.
I'm willing to take Harbor Committee if nobody else has it. Does it? Susan?
Oh, yes.
You can.
Right on.
I have a commitment at 10 on Tuesdays, but if I can be in Rockland by 10, then I could do it.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
Susan, we'll put you down. Thank you.
that's great.
Historic Resources Committee.
So that is also Tuesday, second Tuesday of the month, and it's at 11.
I generally go to those meetings, and I
wanna maybe
I
share a
defer to
little bit?
you.
I like it, but I need help. And so I think we've done co-liaisons before. Maybe we can just, I'll go when I can and
Sure.
we can
I would actually prefer one liaison and have
Okay.
just the other person go anytime you want. I think it's better that way. But I think given the list here,
Yeah, yeah.
nobody's going to lack for
Right.
committee assignments here by the time we're done. So I would suggest, given, again, if you think that you have a limited
I am,
resources on the
the truth
time.
is I am
I'm
struggling
going
and
to
I
help your
really
family
love
right here,
that.
Allison.
I love that group. But I'm still invited, right, Chris? So,
All right, we'll put Ken down as historic resources and Allison as the special guest. Investment committee. Investment committee.
So I don't believe we have any current select board members on this committee. There are a few, Chip Late, for example, is on it. I believe Bob Falciani and Sophie were the last select board members
Yep.
on it.
Sophie is listed on the sheet for last year, correct?
How often do they meet, or do they meet?
They meet maybe once a year.
Yep.
And the financial advisor comes and sort of gives a
I would
overview.
enjoy that, actually.
Okay,
There you
Susan,
go.
thank you. Anytime somebody jumps up,
isn't it two select board members that are supposed to do it? Or
Yeah, you can appoint two.
or do we
do
have
we
to?
have
though?
to? I'm sorry. I
Don't
don't have
have
to do
to.
that. Never mind.
Wasn't done last
Let's do one liaison, one. Maguntacook River Citizens Advisory Committee.
Based on the feedback I have from some of the committee members, some have said, "Oh, put a couple." Others have said, "Just go back to one." I would like to continue on that committee, and really, my intent would be to, again, let them run with it as long as they're within the scope of what they were assigned to do.
I'm supportive of that, Chris remaining as liaison to the MERCAC.
I do think it should be, we were both, all three of us were recently at the same meeting, and I think all sharing the opinion that the committee should be choosing their own chair or running their own stuff, and that would work better, and that Ken and I can attend as members of the public or whoever they
Audra,
Want.
are we publicizing those as select board meetings so that 3 select board members can attend, or?
We
required.
haven't been, I mean, we certainly can
I
notice
think
them.
it gets questionable if we have people standing up and speaking. Though. If they're just sitting in the audience, but Bill might even differ on that. Bill, when we did the intros, at one point, it wasn't this most recent, Bill talked about, if you're at the same restaurant, it's no big deal, but if you're at the same town.
Not making decisions, we're not voting. I mean, I think
Deliberations was the word that he used, and if it's not a deliberative process,
it's not I guess it is a quorum of the select
I
board,
mean,
but
I guess
there's-
I think if 3 of you are going to attend, we should notice it
Yeah.
the same way we notice other select board meetings, because the temptation for people to start debating things, especially if you're freely speaking, I think is just, I mean, I just think it's better to err on the side of caution
Mhm.
for something like that. You're just able to participate in the way that you want to without that sort of concern that you're,
So would your suggestion just be because MERCAC is so high profile, would your suggestion just be to public notice all of them? Or would
either
you want
public
them-
notice to all of them, or it's as simple as telling me beforehand that you intend to go. And then it's the way that we notice it on the calendar, we can just do it differently.
And how much lead time do you need to have for that, though?
24 hours.
What if, do you want to, you go to a lot of them, right?
I will try to go with it as frequently as I can, yes.
It's, right. I mean, I would like to,
I think
I'm supportive of Chris being the liaison and them being in charge. I do think and they can be in control of when they want Ken or I to offer anything. But I think it would be a loss if all of a sudden Ken and I haven't really been going to many, but
I still think we should publicly notice them, though.
Oh, sure,
Unless
yeah.
somebody else on the board objects. I think that's what I'm getting to in the
Doesn't
end.
sound,
There's
what
no downside to
what
that.
harm is there of making it public notice?
None that I can see.
Okay. But the other thing is we just want to make sure that, and I try to do this as well, that I don't talk unless I'm asked a question or there's need for clarity on something. And I would need to have Ken and Allison do the same thing, so that what we really need to stay away from is undue influence from select board members as part of that committee. And in fact, even if, with that committee, when they select a chairperson, they're, just like where we have to go through Tom and Audra for things, that it's going to be the chairperson, should be the people interacting with like FB Environmental and others, not select board people.
I completely agree with that. Every sentiment there.
So,
It's interesting that in being on this board, you actually give up some rights that you might as a citizen who's not on this board, but I think in this case you do.
I think that's a longer discussion that we can get into. I do think there's harm to, I guess I would say it in a different way, that Ken and I are some of the most interested people in this project. We get along well with each other. We both, I think, have widespread support in the community and a lot of knowledge, and that there is an opportunity and a benefit to the community to have opportunities just to hear Ken and I discussing this issue in a respectful and collegial way. Ken is actually one of my favorite people to talk to about all of this history stuff. So I think that I would hope that everybody could be a little bit open-minded about that and think about the benefits. I mean, I'm speaking for you. I'm not trying to speak for you too, Ken, but I do think that there's just a benefit to people hearing, the two of us talk about this in a respectful way.
So you're addressing what Chris said about the select board attendees being a little reticent to participate.
It's not our meeting, I think.
Just
It's
that
Chris's
if they
point,
want, the committee could decide sometimes if they, if we're going to have a discussion about the history of the Montgomery Dam, if they want us to
yeah, what I try to
let
do
the
is,
committee kind of
they-
decide. Ken has been a speaker before. I've been a speaker before.
we have to be careful. We have to be careful that we don't create a direction or have them feel that their input isn't as valuable, because they were put on that committee to do research, and I try to only speak small amount to when there is a question that they have where they need some direction to make sure that, would this be appropriate for the select board type stuff? We've got to let this group talk and run. And we just need to be respectful of allowing them to have the freedom to make sound recommendations. And, if they ask us for stuff, sure, we should, and we have information on a given topic, and they ask us as any member of the public who's there. I mean, we should, but we've got to be careful that we don't become a quasi committee member. I appreciated being there this past year to see how it went, for sure. I mean, there are some things I liked, some things I didn't like, but it wasn't my call, and it still won't be. It's an important committee. They've got a tough row because it's such a divisive issue. So we have to be very careful about being moderate, being sources of information when need be, and direction when need be. But it's got to come from the group. We just have to be careful. That's all.
I like having a clear space between the select board and the advisory committee. And I think if the select board becomes too involved in advisory committee, even in advisory committee meetings, I think that space, that clear space between the select board and the committee gets blurred.
So,
I mean, you're just eliminating some of the most useful subject matter experts in the community.
But do
So
you-
I think it can be their direction. If they need a document, if they need, they want to ask, hey, we need a historical map, they can choose to ask Ken if they want, they can choose where the resource might be. But just as we would want to be careful about eliminating your involvement from any electrical project in town, that would be detrimental to the town. I think that there are certain people with unique
I think
knowledge.
my voice is heard here, and I think my voice might even be heard too much here. I definitely have a venue to be heard, and that's right here. And I think the rest of the select board members have that venue as well. And we don't need to spread that venue significantly into other committees.
Well, we've exported the whole thing because one of the criticisms of the project has been a lack of discussion during select board meetings, and so we haven't touched hardly the river issue at all in select board meetings for years. And I'm not necessarily sure that we're disagreeing on anything. I
want to make sure that Chris has some leeway, as well as the MRCAC board, to limit their discussions, primarily the MRCAC board, to limit their discussions in the way they'd like to. And I think
My observation over the last year and a half is that people are satisfied if they know they've been heard. It does not matter what the decision is, but if people don't feel heard, then it's not a good decision. So that applies here, because I want the MRCAC to feel that they are being heard. I was somewhat worried that this board went ahead and made a decision on grants without the input of MRCAC. And so I want them to know that they will be heard. And also, when they make presentations to the public, they need to be very aware that they are speaking for the town and they are offering a chance for the public to be heard. And that would be what I would be saying were I to attend the MRCAC meetings, is that it's very important that everything is evenly presented and everybody gets a chance to be heard. That is the public. So rather than promoting a particular idea, that is the approach that I will be taking. But I do intend to attend the meetings.
maybe you and I could just get together and talk about all this stuff, not
So
during the meetings.
we're in agreement that Chris will be the liaison to the MRCAC, and that they will take it from there themselves. And that you will publicly notice the meetings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Planning board, which has been mine, and I'm willing to do it continue to do it, or if somebody else would like to do planning board, it's one of the more involved boards. If anybody wants it? No? Okay. All right, I will carry on with planning board.
Does it need to be two people, or did
Nope.
it just happen to be two? Okay,
Yeah,
good.
Stephanie wanted to be, but
Have fun.
before Stephanie joined, it was just me. Trust Fund Advisory Committee.
So this is one where we do need two select board members, and Allison is a current member, and somebody needs to fill the seat that Sophie was in.
I would like that.
When do they meet and how often?
Whenever I can get everyone together,
Okay.
Not very often.
not
Not
very
very
often.
So
Okay.
that will be Allison and Susan. Great, thank you. Zoning Board.
That has been me, but honestly, that is one of those judicial boards. Is that the right? I don't always go to those meetings, and I'm not sure I see a role for a select board member. The only possible thing would be to report back to the board, so the board's aware, but I think that is, like, okay, if they do things like special exceptions, sometimes expanding something in the shoreland zone, but it's a very clear process, like these are the rules. And so
Yeah, it's
The
like,
select board shouldn't be going there and being like, well, I'm just, this is what the select board thinks.
it's like the planning board when they're doing an application review, but they're always just doing a review based on a criteria. So
No
I
opinion.
would say if there's anything that you can drop as dedicating a liaison for, it would be the ZBA.
Well, so it's the zoning board of appeals is the
Yeah.
total. So only
Yes.
appeals reach the zoning board of appeals.
Correct.
Yeah, request for special exceptions and things. It's,
Yeah.
anybody can go, but
So we could even drop the liaison there? You're suggesting?
Absolutely.
I just don't know what a liaison should do there. And it's almost like more like what somebody shouldn't do.
Yeah, yeah.
Is
You
this
can do
something
far
that-
more damage than help by.
Is this something that Jeremy attends?
I believe that he's having Shenley do the ZBA now.
Okay.
Yeah.
But somebody from the planning
Oh,
group.
yes.
Oh, yeah, there's a
Okay.
staff and there's usually sometimes an attorney.
Sometimes two attorneys.
Yeah, it's an applicant with everybody's represented kind of in the way that they're supposed to be.
All right, so we will leave that one vacant. Camden Public Library Board of Directors.
Does there need to be two, or was that just a thing?
That was just a thing. I do really enjoy that. I would like to continue.
So anybody object to just Allison?
When do they meet and how often?
It's at 4 usually,
It's
and
Thursday, like third or fourth Thursday of the month at 4:00.
they've been changing it a little bit because like everybody, they're having trouble finding the meeting time.
And I probably will attend occasionally. But
They're
I
open
might-
to the public.
I might be too close to the issue, so
Okay.
go for it.
Okay, then,
I
so is Allison. Midcoast Solid Waste. Right now it's Bob Falciani and Allison. Does Bob want to carry on? Do we know?
I haven't asked
I haven't
him.
asked him. He was kind of,
Well, he's not here to represent himself, so he does.
That's right.
I very much would like to continue.
And I guess I'll be the one to say this. This is not like any other board or committee. It's a full-on different organization, and this is like a governance board where you're running a
It actually
corporation.
has committees.
Yeah.
Has the,
So it's a lot more responsibility than most other boards, commissions, or committees.
So Bob and Allison.
oh,
Carry on.
well, I mean,
Bob not as a board member?
yeah, that was in the absence. I think you, I mean, if you,
That,
Yeah, if you'd like to do it, Susan, we can.
no, Allison asked me if I was interested. I don't know that I do want to do it.
well, we're saying, we're playing it up now in terms
Yeah,
of
it's
responsibility.
definitely Select Board would have the first opportunity if you're interested.
The time commitment, I'm just concerned about that and the level of engagement. I mean, what do you
So
think?
one thing I will say is that all of the 4 towns have 2 representatives. They're supposed to. But it allows for, if only one of the representatives is present, that representative can have the full weight of that town's vote. I don't believe that Lincolnville has had 2 representatives at any meeting that I'm aware of recently. I think we've gone to a quarterly meeting schedule for the board, or is it every 2 months? But then if there are committees that meet more often, so it's a bigger time commitment for me because of the finance
Meet
committee.
on Thursday nights still.
Yes, Wednesdays.
Wednesdays. Yeah.
You can think about it also, because
Yeah.
I don't think there's a meeting
Yeah.
until,
So it's like every 2 months? Is that what you?
Yeah.
One meeting every 2 months?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, okay.
It has settled down. It isn't as time intensive as it was maybe
there
3
was a
years
period
ago.
of time where it was really,
Yeah.
So Susan, you want the assignment or no?
sometimes Bob and I vote against each other and we cancel our votes out by,
You-
so Camden sometimes.
Would you want me to do it for a bit and see how your schedule works out?
Yeah.
I can back out.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna
Yeah.
go Allison and Chris.
We'll go
Yes.
Allison and Chris,
Nice.
and then if it works out that you can.
Yeah, I mean, it's just,
It's
it's
Wednesday.
a deep
You said
dive
the
into
right
something
word.
that I don't, that I haven't got the background in, and I don't know that I'm
That's good.
the best person for the
Oh,
job.
you are the best person.
Oh,
It's not, you don't have to be
Oh,
the,
why do you think that, Allison?
because I'm worried about the swap shop sometimes.
Oh, I'm so dedicated because, oh dear.
So it's
I
Allison and
worry
Chris?
swap
Allison
shops.
and
Okay,
Chris,
okay,
yeah.
and we can revisit this.
Yeah, because she said the right word, which was night.
Okay, gotcha. All right, inactive committees. And Audra, is there a reason to put a liaison to inactive committees?
No,
Okay.
no, not right now. I mean, let's sort of maybe reassess that after the goal setting and
Okay.
figuring out, how we want to go about sort of achieving some of those goals. We might want to return to this.
Okay, that covers it. Thank you, everybody. That was easier than I thought it was going to be. So to cover that, Camden Rockport Pathways, Allison, Camden Conservation, Allison, Cemetery, Ken, EMS, Chris, Harbor, Susan, Historic Resources, Ken, Investment, Susan, Mercat, Chris, Planning Board, myself, Trust Fund, Advisory, Susan and Allison, Zoning Board of Appeals, Vacant, Camden Public Library, Allison, and Midcoast Solid Waste, Allison and Chris.
I do feel a little bit bad not talking to Bob about this, but we'll.
So one thing to float, the folks from Rockport approaching us about people to work with them on their, I guess, the article that passed. So not saying you have to make a decision tonight or anything, just,
This isn't on our agenda. I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
rather discuss this on a night when it's on the agenda. We'll have to find a way to structure that so the public is properly noticed.
Yeah, it's almost like again, we tried to do the workshop thing, and this is, we stated in our priority thing earlier, that is on the agenda. Now that, granted, we're beyond it, but the workshop concerning working with our neighbors, there's a number of things that we need to do. Would that be interesting workshop to have at some point? We just don't
I
want it
think
to
it
go
would be,
away.
it
Goal
would be
setting.
great. It's a scheduling nightmare to get 10 of
I
you
know.
together.
Yeah, so again, goal setting.
Workshop, okay, yeah.
We can talk about the goal setting meeting, which is
Perfect.
coming up in less than a
Yes.
month, a
Awesome.
couple
Time.
weeks. Last item on tonight's agenda is adjournment. Anybody?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you, Ken.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0. Thanks, everybody.